All right, hello, good day, welcome. I was going to say good morning, but I don't know when you're listening to this, but it's Digging Deeper. Here with Bobby, Pete, and we're jumping in a little bit, talking about week 7, week 6 of the worship series.
Yes, that week, whichever one that is.
It's all blurring together, but it's been good. Talk about that a little bit. We're also... I guess we're at this point, we're a little over 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks now since the election, and we're all still alive.
Yeah.
No civil war yet. This guy hasn't fallen, but no. So yesterday, you kind of a mix of things. We talked a little bit about some of our Christmas offering stuff, initiative, and then also continuing this whole topic of worship we've been in for a while. So it's pretty cool. Do you want to maybe give just, I know usually we kind of do this expecting people listen to the message, but just a quick synopsis or
Yeah, before I give the synopsis, did you see Peter Johnson's shirt yesterday?
I heard about it. I did not see it. I was told by a few people that he quoted you on a t-shirt.
Literally quoted on his t-shirt.
That's that's being quoted on the internet is a level of fame I wish for, but being quoted on a t-shirt, that's just a whole
nother level.
Yeah.
And it literally said, "Let's go." That was the quote.
Just dash
and then it
Bobby?
said, "Dash Bobby Harrell." I love it. He said he was going to wear it all day. I saw him post a photo online of it later, so I knew he wasn't ashamed of it. And so shout out Peter. He said he saw something online that said, what would your pastor do if he saw his favorite quote on a t-shirt that you were wearing or something like that? And so that was his inspiration.
I will say though, in a sense, that's sort of assuming that you actually created the phrase "let's go,"
it's
cited Bobby.
It's like one of those Michael Scott, Wayne Gretzky kind of it's layers down, but
that's cool. I had like 4 or 5 people "Have you seen this shirt?" I'm like, I don't know where he's at.
It was hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the message, it's just this idea about what it means to live a life of worship, that all of our actions, all of our interactions with people are saturated in the way God has called us to live, and the life that Jesus calls us to, and how that as we surrender our own will and our own way and live according to His way and the new creation that He's created us to be, how that is an act of worship to God as we're submitting to His way, submitting to His call in our life. And so we looked at some things that we were supposed to get rid of, and we looked at some things that we were supposed to add to our life. And
yeah. I think one thing I was going to start with is, I guess right there was, you made a really cool, interesting comment, which was in any form of getting healthy, and whether we're talking about physically or even spiritually, there's always a mix of things that I need to take out of my life. I should probably stop eating this or stop doing X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times as Christians, we can make the mistake of thinking that following Jesus is just saying no to a bunch of stuff, right? Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this.
Yeah.
And it becomes being a Christian means I don't do all of these things. But to be healthy is more than just simply not doing certain things or not eating certain things. It also means going to the gym or running or, being an active lifestyle. And following Jesus is more than just not doing things. It's actually doing things.
Yeah.
And from there, you kind of brought in some of Paul's statements about clothing yourself. I think when I was thinking is how does a person practically practice putting on those things?
Sure.
Do it.
Some of those things were mercy, kindness, gentleness. I think we know what it means to be kind, and I think the practice of it is just the implementation of it into your daily life to consider. So have you ever heard the statement, you can't expect what you don't inspect?
Say it again.
You can't expect what you don't inspect.
What you don't inspect.
Usually it's talking about you can't expect something out of an employee if you don't inspect the work. So if you want to...
You're not paying attention?
You got to look at it. You got to make sure. So in your own life, I don't think you can expect something unless you're inspecting your own life. You got to consider your day. So I think maybe a practical way to go, okay, how can I make sure that I'm clothing myself with kindness or any of those attributes mentioned there in Colossians 3, it's at the end of your day to simply ask yourself the question, was I kind in my interaction? Did I show mercy in this interaction? Did I do the thing that I set out to do? And truly weigh your own actions and your own heart and your own intention and then the own outcome. I've made this statement before, I think on the podcast. It's a quote from someone else. It's not my quote, it's Jeannie Mayo's quote, but it's
You can still put your name on it.
It's quoting her, quoting me, but it's the idea that we judge others based off their actions and we judge ourselves based off our intentions. It's this thought that that whatever you end up doing is how I judge what you chose to do in the moment. But if I do the same thing, but my intentions were good, I just messed up, I don't judge myself based off my action. I judge myself based off my intention. And I think it's actually wise for us to go, you know what? What are my actions? What is the way I'm walking out this life of living for God? And if I am missing the mark, I should go to God in prayer. I should weigh out what I'm saying, what I'm doing. I should consider why I did the thing that I did. When I was younger, one time I almost cussed at my dad. Have you ever almost done that before?
Almost cussed at my dad? I mean,
you have. You cussed at Gary Goodman. What?
Sometimes in the heat of political seasons, tempers can flare.
So when I was a teenager, my dad, my stepdad, the one who raised me, he was telling me to do something. I don't know what it was. Clean the room, mow the grass, something. And I wasn't moving at the pace he wanted me to move at. And I looked him dead in the eye and I said, "Stop." Yes, sir.
It's a podcast. You can say whatever you want.
Exactly. But I almost I almost cussed right at, not like a cuss word towards him. Like I almost cussed him. And it was like, I'm a 15-year-old kid. He's a grown man. And I almost told him what I wanted to tell him because what I was used to, and that's something I would say to my friends. It's something I would hear my friends say to me. But that moment, I caught myself right before I said it to my dad because I realized I'm about to do something that is inappropriate. I don't think I should say this to him. And the reason why I say that is because my everyday interactions started forming the way I was speaking to my dad. And I think a way to measure, am I putting on kindness, gentleness, mercy, all that kind of stuff, is if your everyday interactions don't help you clothe yourself in those things, then you should begin to look at and address your everyday interactions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I was thinking almost like the idea of you can't expect certain behaviors to naturally flow out of you in the moments when you want them to, if they're not being practiced in other moments. Almost like the way I think Dallas Willard, who's really good in a lot of his conversations about this when he was still alive, he talked about this picture of a professional baseball player going up to bat in the bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, down by a run, hitting a home run. And the idea was everybody wants that. Everybody wants in that moment to be able to hit that home run. But we think in our head almost like that person just got up and just swung the bat for the first time in his life. No. They every day of their life, they're in a batting cage. They're at practice. They're like daily disciplines led to the moment that when they were in front of 90,000 people in the bottom of the ninth, the behavior, the ability was there because it was a part of their life leading up to it. And it's like in the moment when I want to say that word to my dad or something, it's like, well, am I living a life leading up to that moment that naturally flows out of me?
Yeah.
Well, then, but what I was, when you were saying though, the whole idea of it's not just what you don't do. I think something like kindness is such an interesting example of that because especially as a father and with my kids, but I see it in myself. Like when you say something like kindness, there's a pro and a negative in the sense that it's a kindness to not be mean to people, right? Like the negative, don't be mean. So but it's not enough to say don't be unkind. We're called to be more than we're called to more than don't be unkind. We're actually called to show kindness.
Yeah.
So like, it's not like I'm supposed to be just like neutral. Like, well, don't be mean to people. It's not enough to just say, Kellen, don't yell at your sister. I don't just want you to not yell at your sister. I actually want you to speak kindly to your sister.
Yeah.
And so as Christians, it's not enough to just say, well, I don't swear around my dad. It's like, but what do you say to your dad? Like, right? It's not enough to just say, I don't say bad words. But it's like, well, what words do you say?
Yeah.
Like, it's more than just don't do that. Oh, I don't drink. Okay. Well, yeah, but what is coming out of your life or whatever. That was a dumb analogy.
Yeah.
But the challenge to be more than just not bad is like not the standard that Jesus sets for us.
Yeah.
He actually calls us to good things as a form of worship.
One of the things that he says at the end of the whole statement of the 7 or 8 things he lists there is he says, always be thankful. And even it's all the things. I love what you're saying because it's all about what we're choosing to do, what we're choosing to interact with. We're not just maintaining some level of like we're doing just enough. We're doing not enough bad stuff to get in trouble, and that's our measurement of success.
I'm just living. I'm just neutral.
We're doing everything that God's called us to do in the ways that we can, and some of those things don't come naturally. Some people are more bent towards kindness or mercy or thankfulness or peace. Like some people are more bent towards it. And I think what we do sometimes is we make an excuse for ourselves. I don't know if you've ever done that before. But
every day.
But we make excuses for ourselves and we're like, well, I'm not naturally a kind person. So that's for someone else who has a different disposition than me. I'm just going to keep it real. Or stuff like that, where we make allowances for our own faults or for our own shortcomings in areas. And I think it's good for us to make allowances for other people's shortcomings. I think that's scriptural. But for ourselves, I think we should look at it and go, if it's something that we can see with our eyes that we're not doing, if we can notice it ourselves that we're not doing it, then we can do something about what we're not doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does... This is a softball question for you, a little T-ball.
Love it.
Worship at its core is expressing or showing value and worth. How is doing good things showing value and worth to God?
How is doing good things showing value and worth to God? By the way you treat others is a reflection of your understanding the way God has treated you. The way you treat God's creation, people, is a reflection. Everything connects back. So when you treat someone with kindness, because you said softball question, I'm like, are you looking for a specific answer?
No, I was like, hey, let's get into the worship because that's yeah.
When you treat people with kindness, it's literally a reflection of the way God has treated you. So like as a follower of Jesus, when you have kindness towards others or you respond to people in appropriate ways, it is a reflection of the way God has done you. The scripture later down says, forgive others. Remember, God forgave you. Yeah. So forgive others. So everything that we do in life becomes a reflection of the thing that Christ has already done for us. He's shown us kindness and mercy, and he's brought peace to our life. And so I think that's the beauty of it. It reflects Christ. It honors Christ. It honors God because it's us acknowledging what he has done in our life. And if God has been that and done that in our life, then we will be an outflow and outworking of what he wants to do in other people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I was, there was no right around. I was just bringing it back to the whole, in 2000, this is a soccer issue like this. In 2008, I went to the World Cup.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I didn't know what soccer was. I never watched a game, but I went to the World Cup. We were in Germany for the World Cup and, or 2006. And we were there for a mission trip, me and like 100 other college students, young adults. And I remember this moment where I wasn't there for soccer. I didn't care, but people.
You don't have to keep saying that you didn't care about the soccer.
Well,
part
I want to make it very clear to everyone that I don't care about soccer. It's a communist sport. But the point of what I'm trying to there was a moment where we were in Nuremberg, Germany, and people in Europe like soccer.
Yes, they do.
Actually, everywhere in the world they like soccer, except the best place called America. So
I mean, all the other Americas,
I'm
by
just
the way,
picking at you now.
South America, Central
the real
America.
Americans, Bobby. I was having fun. I went on a train, and I remember sitting on the seat, and this group of people stormed onto the train. All of them were wearing American flags, and they stood in the middle of the train for like 20 minutes. They were all belligerently drunk, chanting USA F yeah. And I literally had this thought. I was sitting and I'm like, can I tell people I'm Canadian? Would they believe me? I was so embarrassed to be an American in that moment. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what the rest of the world thinks of me. Like, it was just like, it was kind of, it was a very enlightening moment because you go to other places and you don't think necessarily, it's hard to know how other people perceive you because, we live in America, but then you leave America and you're like, oh, that's why sometimes people hate us. But then there are other times where I've been on missions trips and I've had people say, we love Americans because they're so generous. Like, Americans have helped us so much.
Yeah.
Right. And I think about the way that our actions as a country create positive and negative feelings about our country, how we live. And if I am an ambassador of Christ, then the things that I choose to do, and this is where I come back to that, it's not just what I don't do. It's not just what I don't do.
Yeah.
Like, Sweden doesn't do a lot of stuff, but the world doesn't really care much about Sweden. There's things that Americans do that bring goodness to the world.
Yeah.
And then there's things Americans do, that right? And as an ambassador of Christ, when I choose to do things that glorify God, like, I am, as the Old Testament would basically say, like, I am exalting his name. Like, other people are thinking well of God because of the decisions and the choices that I'm making. And I think, like, for me, like, it's not enough. Like, people don't think well of God because I don't do bad stuff, right?
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Like, you don't swear. I don't care. Like, I don't care. I don't care that you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But when I choose to physically do things or say things, when I choose to speak kindly, when I choose to be generous and give, when I choose to go out of my way and do the kinds of things that God calls me to do in the name of Jesus, I'm bringing honor to his name. Like, people are like, you're doing this because of the God that you serve. That's interesting. I want to know more about that God. And I think, like, that becomes for me this way of, like, that I'm bringing honor and worth to the name of God with my actions and my behaviors. And
The word glory, I think, is the actual word used in Colossians 3. I think it's 16 and 17, the first two verses I read. And it is that idea of what you're saying. You're bringing glory to God's name, to who he is.
Yeah. Well, the word glory means how something is revealed or shown. And so, like, how are you showing God? Are you revealing him in ways that, oh my gosh, freaking Americans? Or are you revealing him in the way of, like, wow, those are amazing people. Yeah. That's a great country. Like, oh my gosh, Christians, these people. Or wow, I'm there. Are we revealing God to people in a way that is exalting him and making him great and worth following? And I think that I think that was the important thing about when I was listening to you yesterday. Like, I really just appreciated that element of, it's not just what you don't do. Paul is saying, like, to clothe yourself with these things is an action. I'm choosing to do these things. I'm putting these things on. I'm going to show kindness. I'm going to show mercy to people. I'm not just going to, like, sit, because I can sit by myself on an island and not sin, but it doesn't glorify God.
Yeah.
It's when I'm being active in the world around me and choosing those behaviors. which is a lot harder. I don't know.
I think about that glorify God. We're obviously in Christmas offering season right now
Yeah.
at the church. And even that is a way that we bring glory to God by, obviously we'll receive a lot of funds and money, and then we'll disperse it amongst people and organizations and communities, and God gets the glory from it because it's because of the goodness and the glory of God in our life, what He's done in us that we're able to do these things, and even that, there's so many things that are active of worship that we can put our heart and our mind to. I was thinking about yesterday, the interview with Tommy.
Yeah.
I know it's outside of the.
No, I was going to get into it. Let's go.
Yeah. Honestly, I was just
real quick. Tommy is a representative of Teen Challenge, which
Yep.
is one of the 4 initiatives, the San Diego initiative that we're focusing on with Christmas offering.
Yeah, and so Tommy shared some of his story. First off, I even, just his vulnerability in the moment. He showed us a couple photos from him in his past and when he was addicted to methamphetamines. And all I could think is he looked like a different person. Like it doesn't even look like the same person that he is today. And even the story of how God sort of brought him through all that, I was blown away by. And ultimately, I think when we're a part of things like through Christmas offering and we do stuff like this, what we're doing is we're coming alongside people in powerful ways. Like we're coming alongside them in their story of what it means to follow Jesus or what it means to come to knowledge of Christ or what it means. And I just want to just take a moment and reflect on the beauty of that moment with Tommy yesterday. I don't know if there's anything specifically that you got out of it. I'd be curious to know since I was doing the interview. But the thing that I just kept coming back to was there was a man who was broken. He was crushed. Life had crushed him. And he had an understanding of God, so he knew where he could go back to. It just took him a long time to get there. And I love that he kept his eyes on God. And I love that. I'm really excited for our church that we're going to get to be a part of Guy's story like that.
Could I bring it back to our conversation? Like, you see both sides of the don't do and do. Like, even in a story like that, there's a reason God calls us to make healthy choices when it comes to drug and alcohol.
Yeah.
So as a Christian, it's a very Christian thing to say, don't do drugs, but it's because God loves us and wants good for us. And Tommy would tell you, meth destroyed his life. Just look at his face when he was on it. Like it ruined him as a human being. And so there always is, it's not, and I don't think anyone heard this, but it's not to say there isn't a don't do this side of obedience to God.
Yeah.
There are things that God is saying, that's fire, don't touch it. It'll burn you. Mm-hmm. And so you can look at that moment and you say, yeah, there is a part of his story that should call us to say, hey, when I obey Jesus and he tells me don't do things, there's a good reason for it.
Yeah.
But not doing meth for a lot of Christians is easy. But choosing to open my wallet. Who carries a wallet anymore? Choosing to open my phone and tap the QR code for giving in order to help someone else get out of that. Right? Like there's okay, I don't do meth. Look at me, I'm a good Christian. Yeah. It's like, well, but it's more than the fact that you don't. It's that God is calling you to take action steps to help other people get out of it through your giving and your generosity and maybe your time. Maybe someone in church yesterday was like, how do I go and serve Teen Challenge? How can I be like being actively engaged in helping others? It's like, okay, yeah, don't do it. But now it's not enough to just not do meth. Okay, I'm a good Christian. I don't do drugs. It's like, yeah, but now it's like, how can I help others who are stuck in that?
Yeah.
And so it's both sides of it. And I think when you put somebody on a stage who makes it real, I think that's so helpful. At least it is for me. Like it became personal. Cause I like, I don't know, this is kind of dumb. I used to watch like Breaking Bad and stuff, and like I grew up in like really, really small Midwest farm towns. I don't think I ever knew anyone that did meth. I was like, wait, that's real? I don't mean to, I'm not trying to laugh at his pain, but I was like, I laugh in the sense that I think there's something good about it becoming real.
Yeah.
Like we're like, this is a real thing. What can I do about it?
And I think what we instantly do is we can disconnect it from reality or humanity. And so it becomes something so far off. And then we can make excuses for why we think these people got in this
They're
situation.
idiots. They deserve it.
Yeah.
They're dumb.
But then when you put a face to the story,
Yeah.
and then also most people, be like, oh, you're in it, you'll always be in it. Like we lack that grace at times for people who have been in it, thinking that can they even get on the other side and get free of the addiction?
Almost like we lack hope that there's why should I give money? No one's going to change.
Yeah.
When you see someone that did change.
Yeah. When you see it right in front of your face and you see this side of it, and you see a man like Tommy, and there's so many more, he represents a multitude of stories. I think he shared the success rates like 80%. Is that what he said? It was a super high percentage. I don't want to direct quote it, but it was super high for Teen Challenge, where outside of Teen Challenge, I think the average rate he said was 22% of success going through the program. So he represents just a huge population of people who were at one point in time addicted, controlling substances, addicted, and is now free. And the beauty of Tommy's life is now he's living a life that is glorifying God, that he's representing Christ to others, that he's serving God in a powerful way. And so I think when we come alongside and we give towards that, it's good to know that there's hope on the other side of it. It's good to know there's freedom on the other side of it. And it personalizes it just enough to let us all realize, hey, this is something that is real, tangible, and is able to happen. It's possible. Yeah. People can get free.
That's why I love, one of my favorite aspects of the Christmas offering are the nominations, because they're often so personal. There's this moment that we'll have in a month where we'll sit down with this massive list of names, many of whom we know, many of whom we don't, and you hear all these stories, and especially in the months that follow, I don't know, it's just a really cool thing. I've always been very cheesy Christian thing to say, but very blessed to be a part of it, and I really enjoy it. Now we do have a few more coming up, so this weekend we'll do another one. We're going to talk this weekend about the A21 Food for the Hungry.
A21. Yeah, you're right. I was wondering if you were trying to guess the right number.
I can remember the order that we're in. It gives us a bit more information, and we don't have to dive into that a ton because obviously next Monday we'll have another podcast that could look back on it. But the goal is not to be. You actually made a comment yesterday that I thought was interesting, not on the stage, but there's a line somewhere that exists between motivation and hope and manipulation, right? When you're like, okay, now you're just trying to manipulate me to get my money. And I think the line is tenuous and difficult, and we're always wrestling with it.
Yeah.
If you're not wrestling with it, you've probably crossed it. But for us, it's not about, it's not about like trying to like twist your arm to give. It's about seeing the way in which giving is choosing to glorify God and take part of everything you said yesterday. It's like, here's an opportunity that Rise City Church collectively is giving you to worship in a real, practical, powerful way. And so when we share these stories and we put people on stage, we show videos, or we talk about, hey, this happened. It's not about give us more money. You and I benefit nothing from the Christmas offering.
Yeah.
Right? When I get up and I'm like, hey, normal tithes and offerings, I'm kind of asking for my paycheck. But it's why it's so much fun to talk about Christmas offering, because I get nothing out of it. Like I don't see a dime of that money. The church doesn't see a dime of that money. It really is a chance to say, if choosing to do good, if choosing generosity is glorifying God and worshiping Him, here is an incredible opportunity for it. And so we're going to keep doing this stuff. We're going to keep putting in front of people. We're going to keep saying, here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. And sometimes it might feel sappy. Sometimes it might be like, all right, we believe in this. This is real. God is doing a good work. And we don't mind asking you for money for this at all. Yeah. It's worth doing. It's goodness. And so I'm looking forward to the next few weeks. And obviously December 8th, the Christmas offering itself is going to be It's always a fun Sunday. Always a great Sunday. And then we have one more week of the worship series.
Yep.
This Sunday. Mariah's bringing it home. Yep. Do you know like kind of what her topic is? I just give it a little heads up.
I think she's talking about worship.
Okay. Worshiping Jesus.
Yeah, no, I think she's gonna wrestle with that tension of, maybe that idea of what last time we spoke, she could change this obviously, but it's wrestling with that tension of like you have natural worshipers who lean towards it, and then you have people who don't
like in terms of liking like the
like
singing
that moment,
kind of
that element, and then what that looks like, why it's good, or she's gonna try to connect that bridge there, and then what it means. What worship means beyond even today. And so she's going to look at a few things. I think it's going to be great.
Right. And then then we are in December.
Yeah.
We'll do some Christmas stuff. 3 Christmas Eve services that you can actually jump online and reserve your seats now, which you should do because they fill up quick.
Yes.
You want to make sure you have spots Christmas Eve.
And we want to make sure we've got our volunteers planned for the right rooms for all the kids that are those sessions. We want to make sure the rooms ready, so get registered.
And we have a toy drive happening. Man,
so
many ways to give and support, and man, it's just Christmas. Why not? Let's do it. So it's going to be a great month, and then we're in 2025, which sounds like a science fiction movie.
Yes, it does.
2025. For Dawson, though, that's like it just feels normal because he was born 9 years ago.
Yeah, we were born in the 1900s.
I was born in the last century, Dawson. It's crazy. It's wild. Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us on this episode. Great job this week, Bobby. Appreciate it. And we're looking forward to Mariah this weekend and see what God's going to continue to do with the Christmas offering. So until then, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks, everybody.